All right, well, welcome to the Tape It. All right, well, welcome to the Tape It Till You Make It podcast.
Oh, that's in. That's it. That's our intro.
Yeah, whatever.
All right. Well, welcome to Tape It Till You Make It podcast.
Yeah.
The podcast where we talk all things film, marketing,
Stuff.
business, stuff. I'm John, and this is Ash. Ash, do you want to
Ashley.
tell me a little bit about film? So what we're talking about today really is the film industry in Vancouver. We've both worked in it. We've both had some experiences in it. I'm sure with like varying degrees of fun and heartbreak and stress, and then also just like success. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Why don't you give some backstory as to who you are and what you do in film, and then
And we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Ash. I am operations manager and producer at Noravera. We're a video production company where we do a lot of short form content for web and digital television, things like that. But where I started was in the film industry on television series. So when I first moved to Vancouver, and the first film job I got was a production assistant gig on an NBC show called Timeless.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Did you work in film in New Zealand before you came here?
I did film school.
Yeah.
So I started at university because I knew I wanted to get into film. I just didn't know how I needed to get there and what I needed to learn to get myself into a position and be successful in it. So I did the thing where I went to university and started doing your business management degree, because I was like, management, arts, that's what I would have to get myself into. So started doing a conjoint of business and arts to do media and production management. That didn't work out so well.
Wait, there's a story behind that, I'm sure.
No, you know what? I found myself doing classes like philosophy and statistics and economics just because I had to do all of the stages to get through, and I hated it. It was just not what I wanted to spend my money on. So I decided to just find a different opportunity, and I found a film school where I did a diploma of production management, and it was just 1 year. And it was awesome. It taught me everything I needed to get the basics of the industry.
Yeah. So you liked it. You had a good experience in film school? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was practical,
Yeah.
They had a studio. We got to do live broadcast, and we got to go out and shoot stuff and actually learn how to operate a camera.
Yeah, that's got to be, school in general, probably the best type of education is a practical education, especially for something like that where it's very technical too, where it's just how are you going to learn this in a book? It makes sense just to go and do it and learn by actually doing it.
I'm going to write an essay about themes.
Oh yeah? Okay.
And foreshadowing.
I've heard mixed things about film school. A lot of people are like, you don't need film school, just go do it. Get a camera and shoot it. And then a lot of people are like, oh, well, yeah, it's a great place to meet people first. So it's if going to film school, I think you meet a ton of people who eventually will work in the film industry and work their way up. So you all come up together and you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I went to 10 years later, you're I went to film school with this person, and now they're producing this big thing. So it's a really great networking tool, I think, at the very minimum.
Yeah. Jackie and I, we went to the same film school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who used to work here.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's crazy.
I think when I lived in Victoria, it was just when I was first getting into film, and a bunch of my friends, in my circle of filmmakers friends, they were all going to film school, and I just took the other path where I bought a camera. I was I don't need film school. And then we all kind of came up almost together, but they were going to film school, and I was just piddling around with the cameras and filming things. And once I felt they were obviously getting a formal education, and it was more structured and that kind of stuff. But I think when I just worked on this really small independent movie just as a camera assistant.
Cool.
And I feel I learned so much in the 2 weeks of being on, or 2 or 3 or whatever, being on this movie, that I had almost gotten to their level of having gone to school, where I was just surrounded by it constantly for 3 weeks of 15-hour days or whatever it is. You learn a lot being on sets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I think you can either just dive in the deep end and figure it out. I wish I did it a little bit more. When I finished school, I got an internship at Sky Television, which is like a
Sky TV. That's like big in
the
not
UK.
not North America, but it's big like everywhere else.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, so there's an arm of it in New Zealand, and I worked for Sky Sport, so it was
Cool.
broadcasting. But it's like I went out into film school to go into the film direction, and then ended up doing, I was a satellite operations coordinator, which sounds super cool, but
That does sound cool.
it's literally just like putting stats into a computer so that the satellite lines the live feed up.
Still pretty sweet. It sounds like you're like choosing coordinates to attack with this like military satellite.
It was pretty cool. We had a lot of satellites on the grounds, so it was cool knowing that I had something to do with them moving their positions. It was
Sweet.
It was sweet.
Okay, wait. So you graduated film school in New Zealand. You came here. The first job you had was
Production assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for what production was it again?
Timeless.
Timeless.
Yeah.
What is that a show? I haven't-
Yeah. It's
So
a show where it's like
Oh, okay.
she goes
I
back
know.
and they go back in time, like they're time travelers, so it's like very period based, and they go back to like certain events, and they have to like stop people from doing things that affect the future.
You might say they're timeless.
Yes, they are timeless.
Okay.
Which was super fun because it was like the sets that we had every single day that we went to work was a completely different environment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so fun. Just you walk into the studio and you're like, okay, what world are we in today?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like what year are we today? What world are we in? That's sweet.
Yeah.
Those experiences are good. I find like everyone who starts in the film industry pretty much starts as a PA, like
Yeah.
production assistant. You're either, and it's a range of stuff that you're doing too. So like some PAs are like, in doing like admin stuff, and then there's other ones that are just like wearing a vest standing in a parking lot, which is the one I was. Yeah, a human pylon. And that's not as fun, but
15
but yeah.
hours in the rain.
Exactly.
It's not
Yeah.
fun.
It's not great, but the good thing about it is that you get this like experience of being on a big set where if you're actually there to learn, you can learn a ton just by watching how like the big players do it, because you're usually on like a big budget thing most of the time, and or it's easy to get on a big budget thing with zero experience if you're just going to be as a PA. Like you have no experience, like you be a human pylon over here. And then, but you like eventually will get close to the set and you can like see how people are doing it and see how like the DOP is doing, like lighting things, and see how everyone's working too.
Listening.
Yeah.
Listening
Yeah,
to
just
like
listen.
everyone's expertise, I think. And learning the etiquette of being on a set,
Oh,
I think,
yeah.
is super important.
Yeah, that's one that people that might not know, like if they haven't worked in film. It's very strange. There's like language, there's etiquette, and there's like a hierarchy. It's very like militaristic, I found, where the hierarchies of everything are very similar to like U.S. military, or what you would imagine the U.S. military to be from movies. I don't know. Yeah. How did you get from Timeless to the next job?
So I went into it pretty headstrong, and I came here to Vancouver to get into the industry. So I came in knowing that I wanted to get out of this position pretty quickly.
Right.
So I put my head down and worked hard and said yes to absolutely everything that I could, and just tried to notice certain people and learn more about which direction I wanted to go in. And I very quickly noticed the first AD. It was
Right.
like, that's it.
First AD, the hardest job in film.
Yep, that's what I want to do. I just noticed, how in tune they were with everything that was going on, and they were the center of that like direction to everybody else. And
Yeah.
I just loved the thought of just being involved in so many different places and having such a thorough understanding of what was going on that you're the one answering all of the questions.
Right.
If anyone has a question.
Can you describe what a first AD is or does, like
Yeah.
to someone who might not know?
Yeah, first AD is the first assistant director, not to be confused with the director's assistant.
Right.
Two very different jobs.
Yeah, it is.
So the first AD's main responsibility is what's called the one-liner. So you take a script, which has been produced by, your writing team, your directing team, your creative team. the first AD is hired to basically organize the shooting order of that script and everything that needs to go into it. So once the script is at a point where it's a final-ish, revisions come later.
Colors.
Yeah, colors come later. The first AD's responsibility is to build out that one-liner. So you do a script breakdown where you break everything down into times and locations and talent required and what all needs to be built at a certain time and what needs to be shot at a certain time, etc. How much can you fit into a day? And they basically build out the schedule for the entire production. So for a TV series, you're looking at something that's 8 episodes, you're looking at about 16 weeks. You shoot an episode in 2 weeks type thing.
Yeah, and that's all before you shoot, all that planning, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or while you're shooting as well.
Yeah, exactly. You have the first draft version of the script where you build out the one-liner so that people can start planning in their own department. So you learn, once the one-liner is built, the construction department learns what sets to build first because shooting crew is going to be at this set first. And then as the script gets updates, then that one-liner gets updates and people change their schedules accordingly.
Yeah. And the script's always getting updated because, I think it's rare that something is written and then it doesn't change at all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Like, people are always like, it's like, I don't know about this decision this, character makes here. Like, let's change this a little bit. Or, this scene doesn't quite work. Let's change that. And this is, while you're in production, too. So it's like these things get changed, and then it has this weird ripple effect that goes all the way down. And I guess the first AD is the person who has to navigate it.
So I'm gonna jump to an example.
Yeah.
And it was later in my film career. I jumped to training assistant director after I kind of realized by being given a chance by a second AD who noticed that I was interested in the work. And I started working for Lemony Snicket, which was absolutely amazing and had some awesome mentors on that. And the show moved so fast. We had Video Village. We had our writers on set. Our actors would do something, and the writers would like where they were taking it. They would rewrite scenes that we were moving into tomorrow and then send the changes. They would get approved. I would have to run to the office where they're getting printed on a new piece of paper, and then part of my job was to run script revisions to every department in the crew.
Yeah.
And then go to the second AD who's sitting in the studio on set building the call sheet for tomorrow and script changes are coming in and we're like, well, that cast isn't coming in tomorrow. Oh, we got to pull this person in.
And you were constantly the bearer of bad news, probably. It was like, oh, you know that work he just did? Here's a new stack of pages to redo it all.
Oh, Joe over here, he just rewrote tomorrow's schedule. Yeah. I'm sorry to bring you that news.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Man. Yeah. So Lemony Snicket's. Let me hear about that. I know I've heard some stories. It's probably crazy. It's a big Netflix show, probably fast moving as hell, and a big budget too.
Yeah, super big budget. I think it was something like $1 to $4 million an episode, which is just such a phenomenal amount of money on a show. There's so much money in the industry to be spent.
Yeah.
But what comes out of it is just incredible. There was so much attention to detail in every aspect of that show, whether it was the art direction, the wardrobe, the hair. Fun fact, the hair department actually won an award for their hairstyles in the show. I'm sorry, I don't know what award it was.
That's sweet though.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it's heavy on makeup too.
Prosthetics.
What's his name? Yeah, prosthetic. Neil Patrick Harris is covered in prosthetics the whole time, right?
Yeah, it would take him about 3.5 to 4 hours every morning to get into that makeup.
That's fucked too.
Every day.
I think a lot of people know it's that you've seen the behind the scenes. A lot of the people, they just film a time lapse of them getting ready when it's this crazy character they're getting into. But this is you're getting ready for a 12-hour day and you have to show up 4 hours early to sit in a makeup chair at whatever in the morning, 3 in the morning probably.
Well, it would be part of their 12.
Oh yeah, it would.
Their processing time. But you do go into OT if you need to shoot longer than the 12, which he would usually do because he was the main character.
yeah, totally. He's in every scene.
Yeah, it's a long day.
Yeah, yeah, and there's kids involved in that show too, and that's a whole different ball game as well when you have under 18 actors, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. The kids on the show were in numbers 4, 5, and 6, I think. So
that's order of
cast on the call sheet, which is generally like number 1 is, you know, your most important character, or generally just the person with the most lines in the script.
Do you think that is the number 1's not always the main character? Yeah, it's got to be.
It's got to be based on some kind of math.
I bet it's in their contract. I bet actors are like, you know what? I'm not going to do this movie unless I'm number 1.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, totally.
Neil was a producer on the show too, so that adds a lot to it.
Yeah, that's a whole different dynamic too when you're the star of the show and you're a producer, which essentially makes you the boss.
Yep.
And you
and a writer.
Yeah, I'm sure he's writing too.
I do whatever I want.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I lost my train of thought.
Well, how long did you work on that show for?
Almost 2 years, at least 1.5 years before I came here, and I did 2 seasons with them, so season 2 and season 3,
Mm-hmm.
and moving here, I had to leave 1 episode before the whole thing finished.
Oh, really? When you started working here? Oh, no.
Everyone was
pill.
very sad,
Yeah.
very sad. Nobody was happy with me turning in my letter that close to the end.
Oh, man. That was the last season, too?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a lot. Oh, we were talking about the kids.
Oh, yeah, the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is tricky. Like, they have to go to school, you know, and they have to there's a certain amount of time that they're allowed on set depending on their age. You know, if they're 16, they're allowed on for a certain amount of time and then have to have a break. If they're under 14, they're only allowed on for 3 hours and then they have to take a break. And if you're, you know, under a year old, you're only allowed on for 15 minutes and you take a break. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of rules around timings and things like that. And for kids, they have to get a minimum of 4 hours of school each day. So constantly I was running back and forth from set to school, and the kids don't want to go to school. They want to be on set, and the teacher doesn't want them on set, but she wants them in school.
Yeah,
and you're like,
what's school? Is it just like a tent put up like in the parking lot somewhere? Or what is it?
Pretty close to that.
Yeah.
I
With
think
like school written on a banner on the top?
this one was in a studio, and they basically had like a storage room in the back.
Clear out the like old like chairs and stuff and tables. And
they made it look nice. You know, they do their own artwork and make it super fun.
Yeah.
It's a nice environment, and it's great for them to get out of the set environment too. It can be very busy.
Yeah, totally. That would actually be harder than it might seem, because you're working when you're on set. Like, these kids are all like, they're acting, they're on set, and then they just get like ushered away to go do like 2 hours of school, a big chunk. So they're just like working there, and then they're like grabbed by you and ran back to set to do like 4 more hours of acting.
And they got to learn the lines in that time too.
And they're like 12 or whatever. It's like, I was not doing that.
They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
They really were extremely talented kids and cared so much about the work, but also recognized that school was important too. Mm-hmm. You know, they wanted to be in both places, and I just have so much respect for them, because it is a very hard job to do as a kid. And you're not in your school environment with your friends. You're in a super quiet room with 3 other people, forced to, you know, do schoolwork.
Yeah, it's a very different childhood, I'm sure, too.
Yeah.
Where you like think of your whole school experience being like in a public school or whatever. It's like you have all your friends, you just like slack off and just like fool around, but then they're just like working hard. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at like a very young age too. Crazy.
Yeah,
Super
they would
crazy.
leave. They would do their 10 hours. Then they would leave in the car, and they would, you know, run their lines together in the car back to the hotel, and then they would keep doing their lines back at the hotel, and then back to set 7 o'clock the next morning and go through hair and makeup and into school and then onto set, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it's hard work.
Yeah.
yeah, even just acting in general. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know how hard of a job acting is too. You have to be so dedicated, and you have to put in tons of hours. And like, yeah, they get paid a lot of money.
Eventually.
Eventually,
they
yeah, no. At the
really
start, they're
hard.
like trying to get their shift covered at like Moxie's. They're coming onto set.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My like, at least my like early experience as a PA, it was, I mean, there were a lot of like rough days, like human pylon in a rainy parking lot at 3 a.m. But then there's one show that I did called Human Target that I was like a fairly regular production assistant on. And that was cool because it was another big budget. It was like $1 million an episode or something. But it was super action heavy.
Cool.
And so I got to see like some of the wildest stunts ever. It was like super interesting as someone who's like just getting like familiar with the film industry and stuff. There were like it was all on location. So like yours was mostly in a studio, I think. At least I'm sure there was lots of location as well.
Yeah, Lemony Snicket's was all studio.
Was it all?
Never on location.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
I don't think.
That's the good life.
Yeah.
When you just like get to
just
chill
to work,
in a studio.
to circus.
Yeah.
No locations.
Oh yeah. So this one, Human Target, it was like, it wasn't a good show. I think it only lasted like a season or two, maybe 2. Yeah. And, but it was like super action packed where there would be a new location every time and there'd be like nuts stunts. Like there'd be at least one big stunt every episode. And,
cool.
One of them was like the craziest one in Tinseltown, this mall in Chinatown here. There's like multiple levels. You know how malls always have like the second level is always open and there's that like railing around it and where you can look down into the stores below.
Yeah.
There's that, and then at Tinseltown there's like a third level where it goes like the stairs go down and there's like a third level. And there was a stunt. It was like a Christmas episode where they had it all decked, like the whole place was all decked out like Christmas in the middle of summer or whatever. And there was a sleigh, like a Santa's sleigh on a giant cable going from like the very top of the ceiling down to the third level through that opening in the middle. And a stunt guy like ran off the top, like third level, jumped and landed on the sleigh and then rode it on the cable down and then jumped off into the third level, like the third floor or the bottom floor, and rolled down a staircase. Like basically like jumped off of the sleigh after sliding down this cable from the third story.
Is he harnessed?
No, it wasn't because he jumped onto it and grabbed it, and then he had to jump off again, so there were no harnesses or cables or anything. And he just like landed on a stair set and rolled down the stairs, and then
it's got to be one of the craziest jobs in the universe to be a stuntman.
Yeah, no, totally. And like a lot of you like it's a crazy thankless job, I think, too, because they get to like talk about being on these cool movies and stuff, but the only way you'd even know it's ever them is if you were sitting there with them and they were like, oh yeah, that little flash of like whatever when this guy like smashes into a wall, that was me.
That's me.
Yeah. And then it's like, but no, I can see like Jason Statham's face right there. And it's like, no, that's they put his face on my face in post. That's like so common now too, where it's like it feels like the actor. I mean, it works in the final version, like it feels like the actor's doing it, but it's like, oh no, that's like a digitally scanned Jason Statham like plastered onto their
some
face.
is so obvious.
Yeah, some of them are pretty bad. Yeah.
When it's like a wrestling match and it's just like a head down and it's just somebody's hair's color is completely different.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, man. But yeah, Human Target was it was overall like a decent experience. Like seeing those stunts and stuff was really cool. Oh, there's another story. There's like a downtown. There's a parkade that has like a spiral, like open spiral driveway that goes all the way down between all the floors. And there was a wicked stunt where this car was like going down this. So it's like, imagine if you're on the top level, you can look down and you can see the spiral as it goes down.
Cool.
And you can see cars, like you can see the edge of a car driving by. And a guy like jumped from the top. I think he was on a cable. Jumped from the top like across the thing and like landed on a car as it like sped down the spiral. That was a really good one too. Yeah. So yeah, that one had some cool experiences.
Yeah.
And then pretty much from there, I started as an editor too. So when you're an editor, you can sort of, there's like a job on set, like a data manager. Once everyone started shooting digital, like this job just like came into existence where they're like, oh yeah, we have this like card from the camera and everyone else is
to do with
exactly. Everyone else is like too fucking busy to do anything with it. So I was like, we need a person to like take care of that and then like back it up and then send it to like the post houses. And that's pretty much what I did after PAing, and I did that for like years.
The
And
DIT?
Yeah, DIT. Sometimes like I was basically like a DIT or a DMT, digital management
Right.
tech, I think.
Yeah.
Either one of them, like from show to show.
Cool.
And that was fun, but it's like a very boring job because you literally have nothing to do if they're not shooting. So
Right.
it's like if they're setting something up, you're just like sitting in a camera truck, just like doing
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that job's developed quite a bit too, because that person, the DIT, has become the runner of the DOP's kind of station
Yeah.
now. So that tent lands as close as possible. And the DITs that I always work with, they like, their carts are so satellite that they're like, as soon as we break down and we're moving on to the next setup, that DIT is the first one out of there, and he is like yelling at his trainee to get those cables in because he has to move it.
Yeah. Those like carts are pretty awesome. I never had that. They're like doing the live DIT, like color management and
Yes.
that kind of stuff is
Yeah.
like, when you're on the big shows.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool, interesting job. You have this like fully kitted out mobile station where it's just like zoom, close everything, like
Yeah,
roll it on
go.
to the next one. Yeah.
And you've got the trainee like literally waiting for the DOP or for the director to say that we're moving on, and you just see them like speed cable that thing up so quick.
Wrapping cable as quickly as possible. Did you ever learn how to wrap cable properly, like really quickly, like where they do the over?
I don't know
thing?
the flick, but I know like the loop
Yeah.
part of it,
That's
and
all
I
I
can
can
do
do
it pretty
too.
fast. But
It's like crazy watching someone
It's
who's
a
really
skill.
good at it.
Yeah.
It looks like they're like a fucking cowboy, and they're just like,
Yeah.
like whipping this cable into a circle.
yeah,
It's awesome.
and there's like the two different types with the camera cable, which is super thin, and that whips so quickly, and then you have your like heavy lighting cable too, and those lighting techs wrangling that cable. That thing is heavy.
Yeah. Okay. So, working on sets on big movies, like, do you have? What would you like say to someone for advice if they wanted to get into film, like as a very first stage? You had a great experience with film school, so maybe it's that. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't think you need to go to film school to get into the industry. It was something that I felt like I needed to do at the time because I didn't have an opportunity like what Vancouver has. But if you're in Vancouver or you're in LA or you're in anywhere that has a big industry, just go and be a production assistant.
Yeah.
Just do it. Like, just get into it. Or, as you said, pick up a camera and just like start figuring out the technology, because the only way to be successful in this industry is to just learn things that you don't know and to like find the niche thing that you enjoy. Because what the film industry is it's just an open area for any kind of skill set to do something so focused.
Yeah.
I think that's what I enjoy so much about it, is that you can literally be skilled in anything, whether it's, scheduling or editing or trees, you can be, if you really like the earth and the green aspect of it, you can be a greenskeeper on a film and just literally tend to the green stuff.
Well, thank you for listening. This has been the Tape It Till You Make It podcast. Thank you, Ashley, for chatting with me today and giving some on-set experiences. I love it. And yeah, if you want to listen to more of this podcast, there's Spotify episodes, there's episodes on YouTube, there's episodes on our website, noravera.com.
Yeah.
We have a newsletter too. You can sign up for that. We release this podcast on the newsletters as well as a bunch of other fun content. So sweet. Yeah.
Check
Thanks
it
for
out.
chatting.